Good, good. Okay, so I'm Marissa.
I'm Amber.
Cool. If you don't know our names, you really haven't been paying attention the last couple weeks, but that's cool. We still love you. So what we're going to do, we talked about how we were going to kind of end our girl takeover, if you will. And we decided that sometimes we feel like, as friends, the best or the most that we've ever gotten out of just anything was when we sat down and just had conversations about our faith, about the Bible, when we were just at dinner or at lunch or in the VIP room for a 3-hour meeting that was supposed to be an hour long. And so that's what we decided we were going to do. So we came up with a few questions ourselves, and then if one of the volunteers would go get that bucket, thank you, Allie. If we have time, we'll get to some of those questions too. So the first questions that we have, I'm going to ask Amber. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Okay. I think for me, one thing that I learned actually this year that has really made an impact in my faith and in my life and dealing with anxiety is I read a book that we actually talked about a lot at Squad. And the pastor said that when you are going through a difficult time, when you're in a difficult season in your life, sometimes your brain isn't able to hold on to the good. You can't focus on the good things. And he encouraged in the book to write down every single thing that God had done for you in your life. Every good thing, every blessing, every promise that he kept, he asked you to write it down on a piece of paper. And so I did that. And so in moments of overthinking or being overwhelmed or being anxious, I would look at that piece of paper and say, you know what, things don't feel very good right now, but there was, God came through during this, and he did this for me. And so building what he called altars to the things that God had done for you in your life. So when you can't find the good in your situation right then, you can always go back and see, okay, well, if God got me through this, and I know that he's going to see me through this as well.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. For me, I have two because I couldn't narrow it down. That's such a hard question. For me, the first one, you know how people say the grass is always greener on the other side? Well, I heard somebody say one time, the grass is greener where you water it. And that really stuck with me, I guess, meaning your life is going to be better when you put work into it. And I feel like that goes in every area of our life. Our relationship with God, our relationship with our friends, just at your job, at school. It's better when you put in the time and you put in the work. Second, for me, I have been known to be a bit of a worrier. So I had somebody say one time, I can't remember if it was like an Instagram reel, and they said it a whole lot more eloquently than what I'm going to say it, but I guess it doesn't matter. They were talking about when you worry about stuff, and they said all these things, you're worried, but have you prayed? I mean, really think about that. All the things that you constantly replay in your mind, you think about them over and over and over again, and you're playing the what ifs, what if this happens, what if this happens. And then when I think about the things that I have worried over and over again, I realize I have not talked to God about it. Not one time. Because when we pray and we ask God, and we're persistent, don't just pray, don't just talk to God one time and think that's enough. Go to God. When something bothers you, when you're worried about something, talk to him about it over and over and over again. And I promise God will give you peace. And that just really stuck out to me with worry. So grass is greener where you water it. And if you're worried about something, you need to pray about it. I know it sounds super simple, but if you apply those things to your life, especially with what Amber was talking about too, I feel like it can make a difference.
Yeah. I heard somebody say, if it's big enough for you to worry about, it's definitely big enough for you to pray about.
Yes, maybe that's
was that it? See?
That's what it was.
That's why we need each other. Yes. I'll say one more thing, too, that I forgot. Something, and this is actually a message that Stephen Furtick did not that long ago, and he talked about how we tend to put God in a box and how we see, if you only see God as a healer, but then he didn't heal you, then you have difficulty believing. He said you can't put God in a box. That's why in the Bible he says, I am that I am. You cannot contain what I am. I am everything. And so that really helped me in my faith to know okay, well, maybe God didn't do this for me, but that's not all that he is. He is so much more.
Kind of like what Josh was saying in his series that he's been preaching. It's we do all the what ifs, what ifs. So we have to start asking ourselves who is, which is really good and irritated both of us because we play the what if game. And throughout that next week, we both were talking about how we were irritated with Josh because every time we would think, what if? We're like, oh, Josh, who is? It's annoying, but it's really, really good. So
I guess we should have said that for our best piece of advice.
I know.
Sorry, Josh.
Good job. Good job.
All right. What is something that God is teaching you right now?
Okay. I have really put some thought into like my responses to these questions, but something that I feel like I have really been struggling with that I think God is trying to help me with is I am a very empathetic person. So if I'm like talking to someone and they're struggling, like I fully like take on like how they feel. Not to say that I know how they feel, but like if somebody's crying and they're talking to me, 100% I'm going to cry. Like I joke, it's not funny, but I joke about anytime somebody gets baptized, I cry every time. Even if I don't know the person, I'm going to cry, which is, it's great because God's like done a work in their life, which is wonderful. But I'm very empathetic towards people, and I make it a point because I feel like it's like my love language to somehow check on people, see how they're doing. So I'll send texts to people, and I'd really try to act like I care. And when I don't get that back from people, it really hurts. It hurts me, and I feel, I guess, unloved. And I feel like God is teaching me that He is enough. He's enough in those situations. I don't have to have affection from other people. I don't have to have confirmation from everybody around me. I don't have to have that love in return. It's enough for me to just give it. And also something like a very practical thing about that too is that when you're dealing with people, which you will in your everyday life, you're dealing with them at home, you're dealing with them now, at school, in your future job, in college, it's really important to remember that not everybody is like you. Not everybody is going to show love and appreciation the way that you do. And I think it's important to remember that, whereas I have a lot of people that love me. You have a lot of people that love you. Amber has a whole tribe of people that love her as well. They just may not show it like Amber does. So, like if Amber were to, if I were to text her and say, hey, I was thinking about you. How are you doing? How can I pray for you today? And, you know, those are conversations that we have a lot. But if I were not to get that back from her, which is not the case, I'm just making an example, that makes me feel like the friendship is one-sided. When in reality, that may not be the case. That's just not how that person communicates back. And that's why I think it's important to like have conversations where you really get to know people so you can understand somebody like for real. I hope that makes sense, but I feel like I get hurt when people don't show me that they care in the way I think they should, if that makes sense. And God's like showing me that His love is enough, but also not everybody is wired like I am.
You told me when we were talking about it, you said that, for instance, you still put in that work even if you don't receive it back, and you've had many blessings in your life because of your the word like, escapes me, but because you are consistent in doing that, like you just never know what it means to people even if they don't respond.
Because for example, like just in like me and Josh, for example, there may be like his love language is different from mine, and he may not show me the way that I show him, but I do know that he loves me. You know what I mean? And it's important to remember to keep giving, even when you feel like you're not getting in return, because it's not about getting in return. It's about showing God's love, and God's always going to take care of you. He's never going to leave you with need.
Yeah. That's good.
So what about you? What's God teaching you?
Oh, for me. Well, y'all got to hear a little bit last week if you were here in the video. That really that was something that was on my heart, that because I feel in this season of my life, I've gone through a lot of growth, a lot of spiritual growth, and a lot of personal growth. And like I said last week in the video, I'm really hard on myself, and I consider myself a perfectionist. And it's hard for me to give myself grace. It's hard for me. I like to make these unrealistic standards in my head that don't mean anything to anybody but me. And so I feel like in this season of life for me, which is a very tough season in my life, that I'm trying to learn how to give myself grace, that there's no invisible checklist that I have to check off. There's no right way to heal. There's no right way to get healthy, to free yourself from anxiety and worry, and to, not be so caught up in it. Well, I should be further along. I should be doing this more. I should be doing this more, and realizing that, like I said last week, that this is not a race, that God is not asking for my perfection, that he's just asking me to be consistent. And some days are better than others, and so just giving myself a little bit of grace.
Remind me later that I have a book.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, next question. How do you find yourself connecting with God in the midst of heartache? And heartache is a very loose term, so that could be several things.
Yeah, it could be grief, could be just a difficult situation, difficult season, losing friends, all these things. Connecting with God during heartache. For me, I'm kind of we just had this conversation. I felt really weird telling her, like, how do I connect?
It made sense after you said it, though.
I did. I told her that I like to go on a walk, and I like to look at all the things that God has made. I know that sounds so silly, but for me, like, when things get too much, when my brain, I can't get to shut off, I for real like to go outside and I walk and I say, okay, well, look at what God made. Look at, find God's beauty in my everyday, which sounds
It sounds great.
Yes, it sounds simplistic. But then I also, we talked about, I have found myself lately, like, trying to shut off everything, like not have the music, not have TV, not have anything, and just sit and let God speak to me, not always be trying to talk his ear off, just allowing myself to sit and kind of sit with my own feelings and, say, like, okay, today, like, almost, I am my own best friend sometimes, so I have to sit and talk to myself and, go through and say, like, okay, today wasn't so great. Like, I struggled today. I wasn't, I didn't pick up my Bible. I was kind of short with my son today. But being honest with myself and almost saying out loud sometimes, like, okay, this is what happened today, God. What can you show me from what happened today? Or what can I do tomorrow? What do I need? And just allowing myself to sit in everything that I'm feeling, everything that I'm going through. And because I think we need to let ourselves not be okay sometimes. Yeah. We can't keep pushing everything down and just saying, it's fine, I'm fine. Yeah. But like not necessarily have to be in a huge setting, but allowing yourself in those quiet moments to express how you really feel. If you're angry, tell God, hey, I'm angry that this didn't happen, or I'm sad, or I'm going through something right now and I need you to help walk me through it. So just really allowing myself to feel what I'm feeling, but allowing God to show me the right way to process it and how to move forward and how to get through that. How about you?
For me, how do I connect with God in the midst of heartache? Music has always been my main source of connecting with God, worship music. And I would say a lot of times, like if you're going through something in your life or you feel down, you're just struggling. A lot of times when you're really struggling, like, prayer is hard. It's hard to, like, pray. It's hard to, like, voice how you're really feeling. And I have always said that a good worship song puts into words what your heart has been feeling, but you've never found the words to say. And I feel like sometimes when I'm having a hard time, like, voicing how I feel to God, worship music is the best way for me to do that. And I lead worship, and there are several, this Sunday in particular, if I'm being 100% transparent, I had a really hard time, like, worshiping. I was really stressed about a song that I had to sing because I had practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced, and I was having a hard time just, like, really worshiping God. And I think it was the song before I had to sing, something that I do. It's, like she said, it's kind of weird, but I do it, and it helps. So here we go. I literally picture God standing in front of me, not beside me, not behind me, and not across the room. Like, I picture him standing right in front of me. And, whatever your picture of God is, come up with one. I don't think he cares what you think he looks like. But for me, I was having a really hard time, like, getting into God's presence and worshiping. And I closed my eyes and I was like, okay. And I pictured God in front of me. And it changes. It changes your mood, like, instantly. When you feel like the creator of the universe, your God, your healer, your provider, all of those things, he's literally standing in front of you, which he is all the time. He's right there with you. But when you start picturing God with you, because we say all the time, oh, God is with me, God is with me, God is with me. He's with me, he's walking beside me, he's carrying me. But do we ever picture him doing those things? We don't. So I think it's really important to have, I'm a very visual person. I'm a visual learner, all of those things. So whenever I'm going through a hard time and whatever, I crank up some music and I worship and I picture God in the room with me. And as weird as that may sound to you, that's fine. But it works for me. And I feel like that really just kind of like opens up my heart to God. And I can just like, I start to feel him. So
Can I say something about saying God is with us? This is actually a couple days ago, my son, we go through a little devotion together. And sometimes those things get me. They're so simple. And
you're like,
yes. And something, because we do say that. We say that all the time. Oh, God is with me. But his little devotional, I don't even remember exactly what it was talking about, but it was talking about before Jesus, when he was on earth and before he went back up to heaven, the last words that he said were, I will always be with you.
oh, wow.
And that just, like, imagine, this is kind of a morbid scene, but, like, famous last words. Like, imagine the thing that you want, the last words that you say before you leave this earth. You want them to be, profound. You want it to, if I imagine, like, if I'm saying my last words to my husband or my son, like, I want something so yeah, I don't like to think about that too much, but I would say something that I would want them to remember. And so the fact that those were the last words that Jesus said before he went back to be with his Father, just, I don't know, it made me feel emotional, because that's what he thought of all the things before I left. Do not forget, I am always with you, and I will always be with you. And that just, it meant something to me. And it really, I mean, this was just like 2 weeks ago, and like this whole time I just thought, like, that, for real, he could have said anything. He could have, of all the things, those were the words that he chose before the last words that he spoke on earth. And I thought, man, that means something. Me neither. But when I saw it, I was like, oh my, like that, it has to be true. It's not just something that we read or that people say. Like, no, that's the words that Jesus chose to say before he left. So that meant something to me. Yeah.
That's good. Are you next or me?
I'm not sure.
Who asked the last question? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. The next one is, what is something you wish you could tell your teenage self?
Oh, this is a tough one. I wish, and I bet you if you talk to any one of your small group leaders, the reason that they are here is because they wish that they had someone in their life who would have helped walk through their teenage years with them. Because I know I didn't really grow up in church. I didn't go to youth group, and so I didn't really have like a mentor or, someone that I could look up to, a spiritual leader, anything like that. And I just wish, and y'all have heard a little bit of my story before, so this is no surprise, but I just wish that someone would have told me that who I was enough, that I did not need a boyfriend or a significant other. I did not need a relationship of any kind to make me whole. Because we say this a lot, and it's kind of cliche. I think it's a little bit, everybody says, but like sometimes you feel like there is an actual hole in your life, in your heart, and you try so desperately to. For me, when I grew up, I don't know why. I guess somebody told me this, but I truly believed that there was like only one person in the earth out there for me. That like God had one person for me, and if I didn't find them, oh well. And He wasn't going to bring them to me. It was like a Where's Waldo? Like I'm just looking for this person. It is, and it stressed me out. And at a young age, that was what I was focused on, was like, I just got to find someone to fill this hole. Some things in my past, some things at home had left me feeling like, I wasn't very loved, that I needed somebody to complete me, and that's just not how it works. And one of my favorite pastors I love to listen to actually said, we talk about soulmates all the time, and I was looking for my soulmate at 16 years old. That's what I was like. Oh, once I find him, my life is gonna be. Everything's gonna be fine. Once I have somebody, I'm gonna be somebody. Yeah. And I truly believe that, and it ruined my life, honestly. But this pastor said that, so many people look and talk about their soulmate, but the only person who can be your soulmate is someone who truly knows your soul, and that only person is God. Yeah. And so there is no such thing. God, I know that's a little silly. God is your soulmate, but for real, a soulmate has to know who you are, has to know your innermost parts, and that is only Jesus. And so I wish I would have had somebody to come alongside me and tell me, hey, you're not going to find it in a person. You're not going to find it in a friendship. You're not going to find it in a relationship. Yeah. You're not even going to find it from your parents, honestly. You're not going to find it from, I am so sorry.
Rude.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. That'll ruin the moment. Eh?
No, you're fine.
But yeah, so I spent so much of my time searching for something to fill me up and to fill this void. And for me, it was mostly relationships. I just thought if I can find a significant other, I'm going to mean something to somebody, and that's going to give me a purpose. And it just doesn't. No, doesn't. I completely relate
because I had a few relationships in college that really, God, I know they're never going to watch this because it would hurt their feelings, but I don't think I ever really liked them. That sounds so terrible. Please don't judge me. That. But it's like I wanted to be wanted.
Yeah.
And I wanted somebody to, like, want me. And I wanted somebody to love me, I guess. And I mean, in college, you're in, like, a weird space. Who am I? What am I going to do with my life kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And I was in relationships really because I just wanted somebody to act like they liked me. Yeah. I don't know. That's terrible. That makes me sound real bad, but it's the truth.
It is the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, what I would tell my teenage self is to stop living my life in comparison with everybody else. Because when I was in high school, I was so insecure. I was insecure about the way I looked. I was insecure about my weight. I was insecure about how I dressed. I was insecure when I was around people. I never really wanted to, I never wanted to, like, be myself. I kind of, like, sat back and acted shy, like I was behind everybody. And I'm not a super outgoing person, but I'm also not shy either. And I just kind of went along with everybody else. I went along with the crowd, and I just hate that I did that. I had friends and I had a great high school career, but, like, deep down, I feel like I did not show who I really was to my friends. Like, I was so concerned with what people thought about me that I don't know. The constant in my mind was, what are they going to think about my hair? Oh, my gosh. I think I gained 5 pounds. What's going to happen? Oh, my gosh. I don't think this outfit is cool. If you like the outfit, wear it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, who cares what everybody else thinks? Like, I don't care if you don't like my outfits, whatever. I like them, and I'm going to wear them. Thank you. But, but just really, like, who cares? If you like it, then just...
It's hard to have a good time when you're so worried. Yes. Like and I'm sure you feel the same for me. Like, I realized how much fun I missed out on because I was embarrassed about
embarrassed is the word. I was embarrassed of myself.
Yeah. And I missed out on so many fun times.
Yeah.
And just stressed out for nothing.
Yeah. Stressed out for nothing. For nothing. Josh, I don't know do we have time for another question or one more question? Okay, let's really hit a good one.
If anybody.
Do we want to, we had the conflict resolution and dealing with loss. Mm-hmm. Do you want to skip to one of theirs?
Yeah. Does anybody have any?
Was there any in the bucket?
Adults, kids?
No? Anybody have a question? No?
Not that Riss and I have anything in life figured out. We're just stupid enough to
we have no idea what we're doing.
We don't know
no idea, but we do love Jesus, so that's kind of what we go off of. Mm-hmm. We could do the conflict resolution. How do you deal with conflict resolution? Are you guys sure that you don't have any questions?
Don't be embarrassed of who you are.
I know. Just
listen.
Be you.
Funny story. Funny enough, Riss and I were at a conference last summer.
Yes.
And there was something like this happening. It was a women's panel. And both of us were too embarrassed to speak up. And when we left, we both were like, I had a lot of questions.
We had good questions, too.
And both of us were like, but we were too embarrassed to say anything. And we regretted it. And we've been kicking ourselves in the butt. And not that,
Not that
no
what
pressure.
they said was going to be golden,
Yes,
but still.
both of us walked away, and I was like, man, I should have asked them this, and I just was too embarrassed. For what?
Yeah.
No reason.
Anybody? Cool. Do you want to touch on the conflict resolution?
I'm so
Okay, so
work in progress on that.
I'll say a few things. So when we think of the word conflict, our mind automatically goes to negative. Conflict is not viewed in a positive light, which obviously conflict is not fun. I get a knot in my stomach anytime I have to deal with conflict. But also, I don't think it always has to be negative, because if you think about the outcome of a conflict, if it's handled correctly, the outcome can be positive, because there's conflict, there's tension, and then there can be a good outcome. And I think if you're going to have conflict with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mom, your dad, your friends, your teachers, everybody you're going to have conflict with. And I think the way you talk to people can solve so many of your relational issues. The tone in which you talk to someone is going to determine how they respond back to you. So, like, for example, if I said, hey, Amber, what are you doing? That's cool. Are you cool with me? What if I said, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Are you offended? Offended. So and when I was teaching, I used to tell my students that all the time. If I had two kids like fighting in class, not like fist fighting, but like verbal, I'm like, check your tone, because the way you're speaking to each other is why you're responding like that. None of this had to happen. And most of the time, a lot of the conflict that you deal with it's so simple. It's so like menial, like the conflict that you have on a day-to-day basis. And I'm not saying that you don't have serious conflict in your life with your family or other relationships. I'm not demeaning those things. But I'm just saying that, like, the little fights that you get in with your friends and your boyfriend and your girlfriend, it's usually over nothing. If you would have communicated clearly to each other, there probably would have been no conflict, or you could have resolved the conflict very quickly.
Carrying conversations, right? Yeah. We talk a lot about that, but it's true. We talk a lot about caring conversations, and your tone is important. For instance, my husband, for a long time, he's a very honest man. Don't ever ask him anything you do not want the answer to, because he will tell you. But for a long time, I would tell him, I don't have a problem with what you're saying. I have a problem with how you're saying it, and your tact is not great. But so that's true. Like, and a lot of times I think you have to. When you're having conflict, you're having those moments, you do need to take a step back and figure out what has made you feel a certain way as well, and figure out yourself, and then also calm down so that you can have a caring conversation.
Hey, I'm Josh Carter. Thank you so much for stopping by to view this message. If your next step is to receive Christ as your Lord and Savior, we are so excited for you, and we want to help you take that next step. So jump in the description and click those links to find out what following Jesus is all about, what that means, and of course, what's next. And if your next step is baptism, we would love to schedule that for you. So just go to CrossPointe.church, select next steps, and get baptized, and fill out that application, and we will schedule that day with you. So super excited for you. But again, thank you so much for viewing this week's message. Have a great day, and God bless.